You are tired, but not to work. He's tired of bending over, to smile when you don't want to accept what doesn't respect you, to keep quiet just to keep the peace, a peace that is never yours. You say yes out of fear. You strive for validation. You confuse obedience with kindness, and he calls his cowardice empathy. But Nietzsche already knew the man who pleases too much. He is the man who forgot himself. He traded his strength for acceptance. He exchanged his fury for silence. He exchanged his soul for palms. And now you live waiting to be chosen. He lives trying to prove that he is worthy. He lives begging for love with gestures of desperation masked as care. But there is a breaking point, and maybe, just maybe, you're getting to it now, because there is something inside you that screams, something that no longer wants to be kind, something that wants to break everything, including the old you. Nietzsche called this the will to power, and she is dangerous. Hard, brutal, but real, and if you have the courage, she can rebuild you, do zero, cold, indomitable. Book. You have been conditioned since I was a child, believing that being good means being accepted, that to be good is to be loved, that being good is the path to peace. But Nietzsche asks you, peace for whom? The truth is brutal. The kindness taught to you is not virtue. It's a survival strategy. You were tamed like a dog, trained to please, trained to obey, but a man who lives to please, he is a man who forgot to dominate. Yes, dominate. Because every living being, said Nietzsche, carries within itself a secret and uncontrollable will, the will to power, the desire to impose, to mark, to shape the world in your image. But that desire was crushed in you, replaced with a cheap script of morality and guilt. Be kind, be helpful, be understanding. No. Don't be. Because the greatest cowardice is to pretend that it comes from the heart when it actually comes from fear. Fear of being rejected, fear of being confronted, afraid to be you, naked, merciless, selfish and true. The kindness you display is not a choice, it's submission, it's a mask, it is weakness disguised as ethics. Nietzsche viewed this with contempt. He called this type of man a moral slave, someone who reversed their own desires and began to venerate everything that makes him harmless. Do you think you are being evolved by forgiving, for being flexible, for giving in? But you're only digging your own invisibility, because the more you cancel yourself out, but you are forgotten, the more you adapt, the less you exist. And the world doesn't respect men who disappear to please. You notice this in relationships, in the looks, in the silent contempt of those who feel, this man is too confident to be interesting. That man will never face me. This man is controllable. You were not born to please. You were born to create tension, presence, strength. But that requires something no one taught you, violent authenticity, the courage to say no, to irritate, to frustrate, of not being what they expect. Society loves the useful man because he is predictable. He blames himself. They adapt. He apologizes even before he makes a mistake. But Nietzsche provokes you. What if you stopped apologizing? What if you stopped justifying yourself? What if you went from being good to being whole? This is the beginning of the break. The realization that your goodness, it has been the most comfortable handcuff in your captivity. If this is making sense, continue. You want to be accepted. You want to be seen, validated, included. But he never asked himself, by whom and at what cost? The need for acceptance is the quietest of prisons. She doesn't wear chains. She uses compliments. She uses promises of belonging. She makes you believe that you will only be someone when recognized by others. But Nietzsche was clear. The man who needs acceptance is already corrupted because he exchanged his essence for approval. He stopped being the cause to become a consequence. And that's what you've done. You shape your tone of voice so as not to be annoying. You hold your opinion so as not to cause conflict. You say yes when everything in you screams no. You hide, afraid of being rejected for simply existing. But here's the truth. Being accepted has never been a sign of strength. Being accepted is the prize that the weak offer each other so that no one has to look in the mirror. It's a deal of mediocrity. I don't challenge you, you don't challenge me. And together we pretend we are good men. Nietzsche tears this veil. He says, the true man does not need to be accepted. He needs to be true to himself, even if it makes him feared, or hated, or isolated. Because the price of authenticity is rejection, but the price of acceptance is death of the soul. And you know. Deep down, you know, every time you were accepted for pleasing, you lost yourself a little more. It got smaller, more restrained, more faded, and yet you keep trying. Like a dog wanting affection, like a servant wanting a seat at the table. You beg for crumbs of belonging when he could be building an empire of powerful solitude. Yes, loneliness, because the beginning of freedom is lonely. But Nietzsche teaches, love your solitude, your strength is born from it. Aye, when you stop wanting to be accepted, something magical happens. You start to become real, true, uncomfortable, magnetic. People find you strange. Some move away. But those that remain, they respect you because you don't bend. You impose yourself. The world doesn't need more nice men. The world needs men who don't ask permission to exist. Are you willing to pay that price? Are you ready to lose your smiles, to get your voice back? If so, continue. The next chapter reveals an even harsher truth. The pleasure of being useful is the new current. You feel proud to be useful. You feel like you are doing the right thing. Believes it is building value, helping, cooperating, delivering. But Nietzsche watches you in silence, and he whispers, you're just bowing more elegantly. Utility is the new disguise of submission, the new religion of the domesticated. You don't serve because you love, you serve because you fear. You fear being disposable. Fear not being necessary, fear of not being remembered. So you offer, you donate, you empty yourself to feel worthy. But dignity that depends on others is existential prostitution. The world praises you for being helpful, but what he's really saying is, thank you for being predictable. Thank you for not threatening us, because the man who serves too much, it is the man who has already accepted his position below. And the more useful you become, the more you move away from your axis. Nietzsche saw this as a modern tragedy, the transformation of virtue into a tool of control. Kindness became a tactic, utility became camouflaged obedience, and you, with a smile on your face, carries the bricks from his own cell. You think you are gaining ground, but it's just being shaped, molded to serve, molded to silence, shaped to be useful, never dangerous. And when you dare to walk away, when you decide to do something for yourself, when you put your desire above other people's demands, they call you selfish, because the man you love is a threat. It stops being accessible. He is no longer manipulable. Nietzsche proposes an inversion. Be useless to others, if that is the price of your inner loyalty. You did not come into the world to serve. You came to express, to create, to dominate. And dominating does not mean destroying the other. It means refusing to be used. When you stop seeking usefulness, you start looking for truth. You start to listen to yourself, to be respected, to be protected. And at that point, you start to bother, because the servant who awakens, it is the nightmare of those who feed on its docility. So stop being proud of being useful. Take pride in being authentic. Be proud of being true to your will, even if it goes against everything they expect from you. if this is tearing you up inside, it's because the chains started to come loose. You felt it, the hesitation, the fear of deciding, the will that arises and dies before becoming action. You have ideas, desires, impulses, but they all fall into the same trap, his own weakness of will. Nietzsche saw this type of man everywhere, men who talk but don't do it, men who desire but dare not, men who dream but sabotage themselves, and he didn't hate them, but he called them what they are, castrated of the soul. Weak will is not the absence of strength, it is the presence of fear, fear of failing, fear of being seen, fear of being hated for being free. It is born from an invisible trauma, the trauma of having been pruned so many times, that now you can prune yourself. You repress what you feel, you rationalize what you want, you analyze even your own anger, as if she were something to be fixed and not a legitimate cry of its silenced power. But Nietzsche said, the weak man hates what is intense, because everything that is intense reveals how small it is. So you adapt, you become light, flexible, easy to deal with, but deep down you are withering, drying inside, becoming a spectator of your own existence. The anatomy of the weak will is made up of compromises, one after another. You give in here, then there. And when he realizes he no longer owns anything, not even your routine, not even your body, not even your instincts, you outsource your decisions. You look for a sign to act. You wait for permission to be, and when confronted, you retreat with a fake smile, with a speech of peace. Must Nietzsche sabia, the weak man's peace is just fear disguised as virtue, because when the will dies, man becomes a reflection. It becomes an echo. He becomes a decorative doll of society. But the good news is this: the weak will can be destroyed, and it needs to be. She needs to be challenged, confronted, beaten by the brutal reality of her own impotence, and that hurts. It hurts to see how much you betrayed yourself. It hurts to see how much you hid behind noble excuses. But Nietzsche said, I prefer an angry man to an obedient one, because fury carries life, and obedience, just silence. So ask yourself, are you going to continue being a philosophical lamb, or will it awaken the hungry wolf you've been choking on for years? If that triggered you, great. You learn to suppress. Taking a deep breath, counting to 10, swallowing. But Nietzsche asks you, how many parts of yourself have you killed in the name of civility? They said anger is immaturity. That anger is ugly. That anger drives people away. Lie. Anger is sacred. It's the fire of the soul saying no more. It's the primal urge that pushes you out of the cage. It is the spark of the I trying to free itself from the bonds of imposed docility. And that's why they taught you to be ashamed of her, because an angry man is a man who starts to say no. A man who begins to break, questioning, stopping serving. Nietzsche saw anger as a vital force, as a legitimate expression of the will to power, like the beginning of the reconstruction of the spirit. Anger, for him, was not a disease, and it was a symptom of vitality, but not you. You buried her. You turned it into a smile, in passive-aggressive kindness, in silent exhaustion, and now he lives in this strange void, a tiredness that doesn't come from the body, but from the crushed soul. You feel it. You feel it when you swallow indignation to maintain harmony, when you accept being treated as a disposable accessory, when you endure everything in silence, pretending it's balance. But Nietzsche would scream in your face, that's not balance, that's spiritual cowardice. You don't need to explode, but it needs to burn. You need to let anger wake you up. I will purify you, because only when anger is accepted, it becomes action, it becomes a limit, it becomes a structure. It stops corroding inside and begins to protect from the outside. You did not come into the world to be neutral, came to be a presence, and presence requires risk. It requires you to be willing to displease, confronting, breaking the cycle of emotional abuse with a firm look and a non-negotiable stance. And here's the secret: well-directed anger does not destroy. It liberates. She rebuilds her dignity. It takes back the space you gave up. It gives you back the right to exist without apologizing. Nietzsche knew this. Man needs chaos within himself to give birth to a dancing star. This chaos is your anger, and your star is the new version of yourself that has not yet been born. So stop suppressing, stop pretending everything is fine. It is not, and that's good. Feel, tap into your hate and turn it into power. If this idea threatens you, it's because she carries her most hidden truth. There comes a time where you stop explaining, stop justifying yourself, stop feeling, not out of coldness, but for lucidity. You understand finally that your attention is a gift, that your emotion is an investment, and that almost everything around you, he doesn't even deserve your contempt. Nietzsche called this elevation, the moment when man becomes a creator of values, when he abandons the morality game of the herd and begins to live by his own code. It is at this point that cruel indifference is born, not the empty indifference of the apathetic, but the powerful indifference of those who chose not to be touched. You don't take revenge, you don't scream, you don't try to convince, you just disappear. You just shut up, you just watch while the world feels your absence like a blade in the dark. Because true power is not in reacting, it's about being inaccessible. You already noticed this. When he stopped chasing, people started looking for you. When you stopped pleasing, they started to respect you. Indifference is a silent declaration of strength. She says, "I don't need you," and it destroys you inside. Nietzsche saw the Superman as this unshakable being, someone who doesn't hate because hating is still caring, someone who doesn't forgive because to forgive is still to give importance to the other. He simply follows, with eyes that see beyond, with a soul cleansed of resentment, with a presence that is uncomfortable because it is inviolable, and that for many is cruel because most people live on reactions, of dramas, of cheap emotional games, and when they find someone who doesn't fit in, disintegrate. Your new stance, if true, will generate silence, people avoiding you, people calling you cold, people saying that you've changed, but you haven't changed. You just stopped lying with your affection. You are learning to be selective, not giving explanations, not to accept less than your integrity requires, and that is freedom. The brutal freedom of chosen solitude, the absence of drama, of the peace that comes when no one else has access to your center. You are becoming dangerous because now nothing shakes you anymore, nothing drags you anymore, nothing else owns you. And this is the final stage before the birth of the new man. You've spent your life trying to be accepted, be understood, be loved. And what did you gain from it? Cold silences, contemptuous looks, relationships in which you were just scenery, never protagonist. Nietzsche says, you didn't live, you just survived in servitude mode. But now something has changed. Because either you dominate or you will be dominated. There is no third way. There is no neutrality in the invisible war of the spirit. Every space you don't occupy, someone else takes. Every doubt you carry, someone turns it into manipulation. Every hesitation of yours is a silent permission to be controlled, and the world feels it. He smells your insecurity. It tests your limits. He smiles as he breaks you, because you let him. But Nietzsche shouts between the lines, "Take the throne, or be chained to the door of the castle. You will never have the courage to invade. Do you want respect? So stop asking. Demand with silence, with the posture, with presence. Do you want true love? So learn to be feared. Because the man who does not impose ends up begging, and there is nothing more pathetic than a man who kneels out of affection, a man who adapts to be chosen, a man who lives to please, while its essence rots. Dominating is not controlling others. It's not allowing them to control you. It's establishing your psychological territory and not back down, even if it costs the crowd's applause. It's understanding that loneliness is not punishment. It's a reward for those who refuse to be a slave. It's carrying in your eyes the phrase that Nietzsche never needed to say, "If you dare touch me, you will get hurt." Because the new man, the man who emerges from this ruin, is not kind. It's not accessible, it's not diplomatic, he is firm, and therefore it is free. Are you ready for this? Ready to lose anyone who can't stand your strength? Ready to disappoint someone who only loved you weakly? Because there is no domain without rupture. And there is no freedom without pain. But if you made it this far, it's because you already know. The old you is dying, and a new you is about to be born. With impassive eyes, with firm steps, with a presence that no one can ignore. Nietzsche didn't want followers. He wanted creators, men who burn what they were to forge what no one dared to be, serve or be dominated. The choice and the responsibility is now yours. Do you realize now? It was never about being accepted. It was never about being loved. It was always about power, about who dictates the invisible rules, about who enters a room in one piece. And it makes everyone feel like something has changed without saying a word. You spent too much time pretending peace, kindness, understanding. But his every gesture was a request. His every silence was a plea. His every help was a disguised cry. Please see me. But no one saw it. Because you hid yourself underneath the servant mask. From the smile of approval, from the fear of displeasing, Nietzsche takes you out of this hiding place. He throws you into the mirror, not crew, no excuses, and it shows you. You always had a choice. You could have said no, I could have left. You could have looked into the eyes of those who controlled you and just turned away. But now it's too late to regret and too soon to give up. You are being reborn, not as a product of society, but as a being that creates its own laws, who rejects emotional crumbs, that imposes its existence like lightning in a clear sky. You owe no more explanations. You don't owe any more favors. You no longer owe yourself the cowardice of being small. Nietzsche doesn't want you to be good. He wants you strong, lucid, indomitable, and if you felt it in your chest, if something in you woke up while hearing those words, so say. Write in the comments, I refuse to be controlled. And if this journey tore you up inside, know that the next video will rebuild you with the steel of truth. Don't stop now. Click. Continue your evolution. You are no longer the same. Now it's time to act like it.